What are you drinking today? You got a nice bottle of wine as a gift, didn't you? From work.
Because
What was the phrase you used? Life admin?
I've just been helping someone with their life admin. So, like, changing their address on everything. So, and obviously I had practice when we got married, when we moved house, and then when I got married to you, changing my name. So, and it's a proper ball ache for a woman.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah, I got a nice bottle of wine and some hotel chocolates.
Oh, lovely.
Which I haven't had for a while.
Don't you mean Hotel Chocolat? You common piece of shit.
Hotel chocolate.
Hotel Chocolat.
We're from Britain. It's hotel chocolate.
There's no E on the end. It's Hotel Chocolat. And English is a mongrel language. That is not an excuse. English has got
I am
words
not going to
from all over the
say
place.
hotel chocolat.
Do you say croissant?
No, because that's not how a British person would say croissant.
Nobody says the T. You're overemphasising it. It's croissant.
No,
Becca,
I'm not.
would you like a
I'm
croissant?
not putting my all into pronouncing things like you go hell for leather. You can't even say corgi right, and that's a British thing. I mean, it might not be a
corgi.
No,
It's a corgi wireless dog.
no, it's not a corgi.
It is a corgi.
A corgi's probably not a British dog, but the Queen had corgis.
She was German.
And right,
And
I'm going to
inbred.
Google where they're from, but they're not called corgis.
Right, I'm tired of this. I tire of you. I'm gonna move on. So I asked you the other day, like, what do you want to do this episode about? And you said, I want to talk about Saruman. And again, I kind of reminded myself, well, we've already done an episode on the Astari, so what can I talk about that is bringing something to the table? You need to. So the outcomes of the podcast are like, you need to learn from it. I need to have fun researching it. And it needs to be relatable enough that anybody can listen to it and be like, yeah. And it also needs to be verifiable, because I can't just go spreading nonsense on this podcast. The aim is to learn, and the aim is to teach. So, eventually I came up with, let's teach Rebecca about the Scouring of the Shire. I refer to it fairly regularly, but it's not in the films. So, ergo, Becca, you do not know much about the Scouring of the Shire.
You see a scene, scene.
You kind of do, yes. You kind of do in the films and in the books, which we'll get to, but it's kind of left out. And Saruman feeds into that, and I thought, well, no. Let's go a bit deeper. What else can we do? So what themes does Saruman represent? Okay. Power, charisma, industry.
Uniqueness, nerve and talent.
Charisma, uniqueness, nerve and talent, yes.
Chassé away.
He's got the robes. He's in the books, he's Saruman of many colours, so his robes are all different colours.
So he's Joseph and he's technically a Dreamcoat.
Well, no, he's just doing the lip sync for your life at the end of the Two Towers in the film. So, anyway, I settled on environmentalism and industry, and I thought, let's go a little bit further. So today, dear listener, what we're going to cover, the Scouring of the Shire, Saruman's role in it, and also the themes of environmentalism, and through the lens of returning post-World War I soldiers. So, for anyone listening who knows the books, it's very easy to look at the hobbits coming back to find their home changed as what it must have been like for a lot of soldiers during World War I. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of those things. But whilst I've endeavoured to do some research, it's still a drunk talk episode. So, we'll be a bit more relaxed with it. I'm having my whiskey. I've got my Woodford Reserve. Rebecca's having a 19 Crimes
Cabernet
wine.
Sauvignon.
Oh, is it Sauvignon?
Sauvignon.
Is it Sauvignon?
Sauvignon.
I thought you only got Sauvignon Blanc. Do you know anything about the Scouring of the Shire from what we've discussed before, or any other sources?
Saruman's army tore up all the land and everything and raped the land pretty much for all its resources and used the hobbits as free workers.
Yeah,
maybe?
I'm trying not to be patronising, but I am very surprised that you know that much about it. Is that just from that scene in the film, or is that something else you...
No, I just made it up.
Fuck off.
I did.
You fuck off.
No, I just deduced it from that couple of seconds shot. And the fact that it's called the Scouring of the Shires.
Yeah, fair
The
dues.
Shire.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we know Peter Jackson listens in every week, so I'm sure he'll be thrilled to hear that his show Don't Tell method of filmmaking worked there. Good shit. I've not drank whiskey for ages, so I'm doing that like weird little face because I've just gulped it accidentally. Blah. Right. Scouring of the Shire. Super, super, super important event. It's super interesting to me as well because to me it is the culmination of their experiences. So it's showing that here is the characters like Sam, Frodo, Merry, Pippin going back to where it all started for them, and this is how much the journey's changed them, right? Standard kind of like story stuff. And naturally, with Tolkien being an officer in World War One, it naturally echoes what millions of soldiers felt coming back. So the events of it are pretty straightforward. So we'll go over the events of it, and then we'll get into it. So normally the lore is the main bulk of the episode. Today, again, just like last week, not so much. The lore is just the background for like the discussion, right? So after the War of the Ring, Sam, Frodo, Merry, Pippin start the journey back home, and when they get there, they find out that things aren't as they seem. But first, we need to talk about Saruman as well, right? Because it differs quite a bit. So in the film, Saruman dies on top of Isengard, on top of Orthanc in Isengard. You know, in Grima
Goes round the wheel.
Yeah, Grima stabs him, and then it's at the beginning of Return of the King actually, because I was watching it with John
He
the other
gets
night.
skewered.
Aye, yeah, in the extended edition, yeah. But in the book, so Saruman is kicked out of the Istari by Gandalf, right? He says, Saruman, your staff is broken. So you've seen that in the film.
Yeah.
But then what you don't see is in the book, Saruman, with his magic, well, kind of magic, with his magic voice or his stunning nat 20 in charisma, convinces Treebeard to let him go. He's basically saying, like, look, I'm not a threat anymore. Let me go my own way. Like Stevie Nicks. And they just let him out. So it shows that his voice is still powerful, but to me it also comes back to this nature, like this question of what is magic in Lord of the Rings? Because it's quite a low magic world. So like you've got high magic where the definition pretty much is that like magic items are as common as toasters, right? And then you've got low magic where it's kind of like our world. Like if we saw genuine magic, we'd freak the fuck out. Like Lord of the Rings is more on the side of low magic than high magic. And so to go back to what they view magic in world as, I found a quote. I found a section that's going to serve us twice in this podcast, actually, for two different purposes. It's that scene that you were talking about where Sam and Frodo are about to look into Galadriel's mirror.
Yeah.
And Sam asks Galadriel about her magic when he looks into the mirror at Lothlorien, and the quote is, this is Galadriel saying, "Do you wish to look?" Frodo did not answer. "And you?" Galadriel said, turning to Sam. "For this is what your folk would call magic, I believe. Though I do not understand clearly what they mean, and they seem to also use the same word for the deceit of the enemy. But this, if you will, is the magic of Galadriel. Did you not say that you wish to see elf magic?" And so again, that's Galadriel saying, like, it's just something we do, kind of, you know.
Come look into my font.
Like, yeah, she's like, I wouldn't describe it as magic, but yeah, it's kind of what you might describe as magic.
It's like what Dumbledore has.
Yeah.
That font.
Oh, the pensive.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But not to bring Harry Potter into this, because I know that can irk you sometimes.
Yeah, kind of, but it's kind of set me going away because it's not so much... I don't think it's so much the pensive. I think it's more be more like the Mirror of Erised. Like,
it's into the future, isn't it? Instead of into the past.
Well, is it? Because she says
What's potential?
you see things that
Maybe.
were, things that are, and things that have not yet come to pass, and may not yet come to pass. So it might be, you might be seeing the past, you might be seeing the future, you might be seeing a possible future, you might be seeing the present.
You could be seeing any shit in there.
You could, but I think that when Sam looks into it, he's seeing the present, but we'll come to that in a second. So we'll talk about Saruman. So when Saruman leaves Isengard, later on, after the War of the Ring, when everyone's heading home, Gandalf, Celeborn, as Galadriel's husband, and Galadriel heading, like they're travelling together for a bit, and they meet Saruman and Wormtongue on the road, and he's just abusing the shit out of Wormtongue, right? And after taking some tobacco from Saruman, which he's a bitter bastard. Merry's like, well, you're not keeping the pouch. Fucking find a rag to wrap it in. So he gives him some tobacco, and then Saruman says, I wouldn't be surprised if the Shire isn't as they left it, and then they go on their way. And it takes the hobbits a while after that to get back home. But when they do get back to the Shire, they do indeed find that things aren't as they were. There's a big gate now at the Brandywine Bridge. It's got spikes on it. But there's also a gatekeeper, a gatehouse, and there's new rules. Apparently, the chief of the Shire says no one's allowed across the bridge between sunset and sunrise. And this is where we first see just how much they've changed in relation to the hobbits that they were. Because Merry and Pippin are basically like, I don't think so.
I just walk around the gate.
They climb over it, and they open it from the inside, and they're like,
let the horses in.
Yeah, they let everyone else in. They're like, the whole point, this whole time, right, all four of these hobbits are like, they just laugh. They're just like, we are not listening. We will do what we need to. And by the way, as well, everyone in the Shire, so they found out now that everyone in the Shire has no idea what happened to them. So they went away on their journey like 6 months ago, right? Or
everyone sold their wares, moved into their houses.
Not quite like that with Bilbo. Well, yeah, people have moved into Bag End actually. But the rumour was that those four were lost and died in the Old Forest, which is on the east of the border of Buckland, which it's allegedly the remnant of a gigantic forest that used to span like pretty much all of Eriador.
So they've been kind to them, because really they've got through that whole forest, haven't they?
Well, no, so the Old Forest, right? So can you see at the bottom of the Misty Mountains there where Fangorn is?
Yeah.
And then if you look up towards the Shire, a forest used to span that. So it used to be a forest that was connected to Fangorn. And it was in the Second Age that the Númenóreans and Sauron like deforested basically a continent. That's pretty fucked up. Again, environmental destruction. But the Old Forest is a remnant of the same forest that Treebeard was in.
Yeah.
Allegedly, like. So anyway, Merry and Pippin climb over the gate, and a man comes out of the guardhouse, and this is the guy who first betrayed them when they went to the village of Bree.
Yeah.
It's Bill Ferny, and is it Bill? Yeah, Bill Ferny, and he's a bastard. And the hobbits then find out that the new chief of the Shire is Lothar Sackville Baggins. So do you know the Sackville Bagginses?
Yeah.
Who wanted Bag End?
Yeah.
Looks like they're so it was Lobelia and Otto, I think. And
they firmly lodged themselves in there.
Well, Lothar is their son. So the four hobbits are placed under arrest by a large band of hobbit sheriffs. It's spelled sheriff, S-H-I. But again, they just can't like. So it's really good because all of these sheriffs are like, they've all got feathers in the caps, and the hobbits are like, you're under arrest, and the four are like, all right then, just laughing, and they're like, well, we're going to Bag End, so keep up if you can, because they've got ponies, and the sheriffs are trying to keep up with them as they're walking. They just get absolutely knackered, and it's a bit silly, but eventually the four hobbits are confronted by a band of men, and it's a bit. This is where you start to think, oh shit, a lot's wrong here, because there's men in the Shire, like big folk. And they mention that their boss is someone called Sharky. And the men run off when all the hobbits the three hobbits except Frodo, because Frodo is now firmly a pacifist because of everything that's happened to him. But the three hobbits draw their swords. So this is where we start to see just how much the war's changed them. The War of the Ring has changed the hobbits. And also as well, like a big part of it is that Gandalf leaves them at the borders of the Shire. because he goes to see Tom Bombadil, and he's like, no, you don't need looking after anymore. Like you've got this. So everything that they've done is trained them essentially to deal with everything in their own country.
Yeah.
And they do handle it. So Merry realizes that they are what's needed to sort this out. And he says that the people just need a match for them to go up. Which, I wish it was true in our world.
Yeah, I think... No, it is true.
Is it? We've had many matches. Like,
no.
We've got the cost of living crisis.
I think we need it. I think the British people were too good at queuing. And it's the same with our revolt. I think we need a French Revolution in Britain.
I wish we were more like the French, because the French went to war over we're protesting over pensions and stuff. But we've seen time and time again. That things keep happening to us, and we don't do anything. Like the cost of living, the energy prices, the government just absolutely fucking us up. This concrete stuff, like where the schools are having to pay for it and the government's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't think a match would work, because everyone seems to have this like mentality of being a temporarily embarrassed billionaire. Like, oh no, I'm sure these mega wealthy people have got my interests at heart. And when you're in that mindset, you can't really sympathise with the people who are suffering alongside you, because you think, oh, they're like that because of this, whereas I'm more like the,
I think all of us always just think, oh, there's someone worse off than us, so we're all right, and we just do with what we've got.
Maybe, yeah, but I don't know. The older I get, the less I think that there's anything that really would set us off, which is desperately what we fucking need. But anyway, back to the fantasy. So Merry realizes that they just need a match to set them off, and so he blows his horn, which, if you remember from our dragon episode, Merry's horn, that's a really good horn sound, to be fair. Good on you. So if you remember from our dragon episode, Merry's horn is the horn of Rohan, which probably was taken from the horde of Scatha, the dragon, and it brings out Farmer Cotton, who's Rosie Cotton's dad, and they all get to work around rounding up the village of Bywater to fight, and the men come back, but they get smashed and give up. So we find out like how this game happened as well, like whilst all this is going on. So once they left on their journey, Lothal began buying farmland, and what this caused was a shortage of food and things. So people of Hobbiton were like going hungry, and it's just all been going downhill since then. So the next morning, after they've like defended the village and that, 100 men arrive to fight, and a battle starts. But luckily, Pippin had left to get his family, the Tucks. So the Tucks reinforce the hobbits, and this is what's known as the Battle of Bywater, and 70 of the men are killed, and this battle goes down in history. It's called the Battle of Bywater. And so when they reach Bag End, they find out that the mysterious boss is, shock horror, Saruman. Saruman is now called Sharky. He's fell very far.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's fallen quite far.
Sounds like it should be in bloody The Story of Tracy Baker, The Dumping Ground. Sharky, the episode where Sharky appears in the dumping ground and has a confrontation with Tracy Baker, the leader of the pack.
I never got into Tracy Baker. I thought she was an absolute dick.
I loved it. Rob, my brother, absolutely, that was his jam. Yeah. And my granda used to be like, turn this rubbish off. She's just a rude girl. And now as a parent, I think, oh my, I would not want my child watching that.
But yet you allow Bing in our house.
Bing is fine. She's not.
Bing is not fine.
She is very polite. She knows. And I always say, Bing is naughty. I always tell her.
Bing is very naughty. Bing is a horrible bastard. But that's
anyway.
But that's by the by. Aye. So we find out that Saruman is Sharky, and after some
fucking Sharky.
I know, it's weird, but after some, I've never heard of sharks in Middle Earth either. But after some discussion, Frodo basically says like, no matter what he does, we're not going to kill him. Like, and this pisses Saruman off. Like he's like, I can't believe they are taking.
He's like, someone just kill me.
Well, it's like I can't believe like it being shown pity by someone he sees as so far below him enrages him, and he tries to stab Frodo as he goes past him, but obviously Frodo has the mithril on, so try again, bro. And we also find out that just in a bit of spite when they ask about Lothor, because Frodo thinks that Lothor's been held captive, we find out that Wormtongue killed Lothor, and it's heavily insinuated that he eats him. And this really upsets Wormtongue because he says like, Saruman ordered me to do it, and this devolves into Wormtongue stabbing Saruman and killing him. And as a result, and I don't understand why, but as a result, 3 hobbit arrows pierce Wormtongue and kill him, which I don't understand. So you didn't shoot him when...
Orc arrows.
No, hobbit arrows.
Hobbit arrows.
Yeah, so you didn't shoot him when he tried to stab a hobbit. You didn't shoot Saruman when he stabbed a hobbit, but couldn't because of the mithril coat. But you did shoot the guy who killed the guy who tried to stab the hobbit.
I think Wormtongue is a love-hate. He's Marmite. He is like
wretched.
The guy in Game of Thrones. Littlefinger, is he called?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Littlefinger? The guy who's like quite slimy.
Yeah, there's lots of them, but I think Littlefinger.
He's like a Wormtongue.
Yeah.
And
well, J.R.R.
sometimes you think, oh, he's okay.
Yeah.
And then other times you think, you little snitchy bastard.
I don't think I've ever thought that about Wormtongue. It's just he was evil through and through, but he was also a coward.
But you know him better than I do.
True. That being said, though, Brad Dourif, the guy who plays him, fucking unreal. So
I'm going to Google him to see if he's attractive.
It's the voice of Chucky. He was also Sheriff Brackett in Rob Zombie's Halloween remake, which I don't really enjoy it, but I like watching it. Anyway, Saruman dies and his spirit rises from his body as like a mist, and it looks to the west but is blown away by a cold wind, which is probably of Manwë, right? That's Manwë saying, no, you can't come home. And so in the end, he was a proper shit to the core, but he's reduced to wandering Middle-earth until the end of time, in the same way that Sauron is, as a faded spirit of malice. Like, that's all he'll ever be. And that's pretty much the Scouring of the Shire, right? That's the main event of it, because then after that the hobbits busy themselves cleaning and repairing the Shire, freeing the prisoners. And what's nice is Lobelia Sackville Baggins, she turned into a bit of a folk hero, and she'd been imprisoned and they let her out of the prison, and she gets to live in Bag End for a bit before she dies the next year. But she was one of the only ones to stand up to the men and stuff when Sharky came in. So Lobelia Sackville Baggins had possibly the longest hero arc of any hobbit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's the main event, right? That's the Scouring of the Shire, is that they turn up, they discover what's gone on and what have you. But I've got a couple of sections I want you to read out this episode. But the first one is, well, firstly I'll read out what this next bit, and then I'll point it out. But let's talk about what happened to the Shire, what makes it so bad, and then that kind of segues nicely into some of the other topics, right? So we see during the Scouring of the Shire that the Shire has been ruined by the new chief and the ruffians and blah blah blah. But then if we go back to the section that I read out at the beginning where Galadriel's talking about magic, we get a good idea of what's happened in the Shire when Sam looks into the mirror. And the quote from the book is, Sam climbed up on the foot of the pedestal and leaned over the basin. The water looked hard and dark. Stars were reflected in it. There's only stars, as I thought, he said. Then he gave a low... Sam's a Geordie, by the way. Then he gave a low gasp, for the stars went out. As if a dark veil had been withdrawn, the mirror grew grey and then clear. There was sun shining, and the branches of the trees were waving and tossing in the wind. But before Sam could make up his mind what it was that he saw, the light faded, and now he thought he saw Frodo with a pale face lying fast asleep under a great dark cliff. Then he seemed to see himself going along a dim passage and climbing an endless winding stair. It came to him suddenly that he was looking urgently for something, but what it was he did not know. Like a dream, the vision shifted and went back, and he saw the trees again. But this time they were not so close, and he could see what was going on. They were not waving in the wind. They were falling, crashing to the ground. "Hi!" cried Sam in an outraged voice. "There's that Ted Sandyman a-cutting down trees where he shouldn't. They didn't ought to be felled. It's that avenue beyond the mill that shades the road to Bywater. I wish I could get at Ted, and I'd fell him." But now Sam noticed that the old mill had vanished, and a large red brick building was being put up where it had stood. Lots of folk were busily at work. There was a tall red chimney nearby. Black smoke seemed to cloud the surface of the mirror. "There's some devilry at work in the Shire," he said. "Elrond knew what he was about when he wanted to send Mr. Merry back." Then suddenly Sam gave a cry and sprang away. "I can't stay here. I must go home. They've dug up Bagshot Row, and there's the poor old gaffer going down the hill with his bits on things in a barrow. I must go home." So that's the first bit of what we see, and we're starting to, like, you can see that the parts of the Shire are being dug up and destroyed and what have you.
This was Frodo and Sam's own country, and they found out now that they cared about it more than any other place in the world. Many of the houses they had known were missing. Some seemed to have been burned down. The pleasant row of old hobbit halls on the north side of the pool were deserted, and their little gardens that used to run down bright to the water's edge were rank with weeds. Worse, there was a whole line of the ugly new houses along pool side, where the Hobbiton Road ran close to the bank. An avenue of trees had stood there. They were all gone. And looking with dismay up the road towards Bag End, they saw a tall chimney of brick in the distance. It was pouring out black smoke into the evening air.
So fucking depressing to read that, isn't it? Jeez, like when you,
the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of that. Like, so Tolkien like refutes allegory, right? He does say like, look, I don't do allegory. If you want allegory, go and read C.S. Lewis, right? Who's his friend? But this bit is kind of based on his own experiences, and he does acknowledge this in the forwards to Lord of the Rings. It started from the second edition onwards. He does admit that it is based on his experiences of growing up just outside and then in Birmingham, where you were seeing the countryside.
Birmingham.
Yeah, thank fuck he didn't have the accent.
Birmingham.
Where you saw the countryside being devoured by an ever-expanding city, which is just so fucking depressing. Like, yeah, and looking at for the research for this episode and thinking about how beautiful the Shire is, it just kind of depressed me looking at it from that lens of the world being eaten up by industry. And yeah, it's just ugh.
Well, it could be worse. The world could be getting eaten up by housing estates.
No, that is pretty much right. That is where I was going with it as well, because nowadays our industry is housing estates.
It's for the population.
It's not even that. It's not for the people who need the houses mainly. It's for these fuckers who are buying multiple houses in order to rent them out for more than a mortgage would cost, and that is just bah. But yeah, so you can look at that from the environmental view, but I also, if you look at it through the lens of the four hobbits literally coming home from war, I imagine that might have happened to quite a lot of people. Like, you come home and not just your mates weren't around. Like, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but yeah, like, not just your mates weren't around, but also like things were changing, places were changing.
You're always going to have an idealised version in your head as well, because over time, if you're away for a long period of time, you're going to forget the actual reality of life. So you're going to have this inflated version because you're going to be reminiscing, and you're going to lose the actual real memory of the place. It's always going to be nicer in your mind than the reality of it.
Yeah, that's true.
As well as all the changes when you leave, because the world still goes on.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, I left the town where I grew up when I was 18, and I go back every now and then to see my friends, and even
it's beautiful.
Even I struggle with how much it's changed, and that's only been over the last like 12 years or so. And
That was a joke, everyone.
It's become massively gentrified.
It's really not beautiful. It's gentrified, but it's still not beautiful.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's been just crazy gentrified. Aye, so that's that's the lens of them coming home from war, and we've got a few on the subject of that. Like, we want to talk about what it's like coming home for real for war. So you had a couple of accounts that you were going to read out, didn't you?
Yep.
No, you'd gathered some by yourself, but I'd already sent you some, so it wouldn't be number 2, it'd be number 3 onwards.
Number 3 onwards. British NCO Horton Mundy. That one.
Yeah.
He visited his hometown in New Bradwell, where he found his old social life had been changed by the war.
So this is accounts of soldiers coming home after 1918 from World War One, yeah?
I'm not doing accents. Well, as you can imagine, it was great to be back home again from the trenches, but it was not quite what you might expect, because when I came back here at that time, well, Wolverton and Bradwell was more like a ghost town because of all your mates had joined the forces, so there was hardly anyone about. If you went for a drink in the club or a pub, it seemed that all there was old men. Well, old men then. Of course, that'd be middle-aged men over 40. That wasn't in the forces. Well, he appeared to us to be old men, and that's how it seemed, with the exception of perhaps a few here and there that had not joined the forces and wouldn't join. Well, of course, you didn't want their company, and that's how it worked out.
Yeah, it's just... I mean, could we say elements of that? So, like, Rosie Cotton...
So this is clearly during... So he's visited home. This isn't after the war. This is... It was during... This is a home visit.
It's during leave, and then after the war, and he's already starting to see things changing. Like, it's like ghost towns, and then men who might not have appeared old before, they now look like a lot older to them.
Yeah, because you're just around men of your age and younger, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so it's so messed up. There's another. So yeah, should we move on to talking about environment, or do you want to read some more of those? Because we found some really good ones about like adjusting to life after World War One.
So there's one from Charles Quinnell that Christopher found as well, and he had mixed success in readjusting to his old routine during his leave from the Royal Fusiliers. The first night I came home, I got into my old bed, and do you think I could sleep? No. Sleep wouldn't come. It was the first bed I'd laid in since I joined the army, and when Mother brought my cup of tea up in the morning, she found me fast asleep on the floor. Now that's true. I got so used to sleeping hard that I couldn't sleep on a soft bed. I'd always been a great lover of the country, and before the war, I used to do a lot of cycling. Pretty well every weekend in the summer, I'd be out cycling. And one of the first things I did was resurrected my old bike, pumped the tyres up, oiled it up, cleaned it, and I rode round the old country visiting the old scenes that I knew in peacetime, and that to me was the most enjoyable thing.
Now that one, I think that one of the two that you've read so far, right?
It's pretty optimistic.
It is, but I think that one most closely relates to Lord of the Rings, right? Because like, imagine that they've spent so long on the road that going back to well, I mean, the Hobbit, so they probably would have just to a feather bed.
Yeah. Feather bed.
Well, like a soft bed, like a lot, you know.
A water bed.
Do you have any more?
I've got two more. So these are from the Imperial War Museum archives. And this one is William Kirk. And he, it says he was one of many disillusioned ex-servicemen at the time. So this was during the time when Prime Minister David Lloyd George promised Britain to be a country fit for heroes to live in. I was very dissatisfied when I came home. Conditions I found. We were promised lands for heroes to live in and all that sort of thing. But when we came home, we found nothing. Everybody wanted us. King and country wanted us in 1914, and when we came back, nobody wanted us because there was neither work nor money. There was poverty everywhere. My own father was a little farmer. He was selling corn at about 9 shillings a hundredweight. Produce was making nothing. There was no money, there was no sale. People were jolly hard up.
Shit, man.
Sorry, I'm a bit depressing here, but it was the truth.
Well,
really.
no, like this is important for
And
context because this
the
is
same for farmers. Like
this is the world that Tolkien was coming back to in 1918, and then when he was writing,
but
these
the hobbits
stories,
would have, like, the hobbits were farmers.
Yeah, a lot of them were, yeah.
So it's the type of thing as well they'd be going through.
Well, we also mentioned that Lothar bought up farmland, and that created like hunger.
So this is another Imperial War Museum. Well, a piece from their archive. Edgar Woolley was also disappointed with his treatment when he returned to Britain in January 1919. Naturally, we were pleased to be home, and we were looking forward to the sort of welcome which we'd heard, which said we would be welcomed and we should be kissed on our arrival. But in point of fact, the atmosphere in the reception which greeted us was one of returned jail escapers. We were directed to a concrete-covered floor, given a couple of blankets, told to make ourselves as comfortable as we could. None of us had any money. For many weeks, we were hoping to get a decent meal, and they had nothing to offer us. And the men were getting very disappointed with the reception and the conditions, and they wanted to know what was being done about it. They started marching around the camp, singing out words like, "We want food, we want money," and they were just trying to make some sort of demonstration, and were extremely disappointed with the nature of the treatment and reception they got home. So, obviously, once they returned home, it was like they were still rationing a lot of things. So, yeah, you've won the war, but you're still rationing. They kind of hope that they're coming, like, they fought for a country that they thought still existed, and it doesn't because of it's been war-torn.
Yeah, damn, yeah, and again, like these experiences, like Tolkien would have seen this, and these experiences colour you. So
You think you're going to get like a hero's welcome as well, like the hobbits, especially from what I've seen in the films. The hobbits, like Sam's, like he talks about when they go back and like how he's almost like he's really proud of Frodo throughout the whole thing, and he's like think about like almost like the hero's welcome that you'll get, and that's what the soldiers in World War One would have. I mean, this was like the first. Well, there was the Great War, but in World War One, it was like quite a big war that they weren't used to when they thought they were going to go off and come back heroes and be like first class citizens, and really they weren't, because there was just not the capacity, and everyone left at home had to just kind of get on and make do.
I mean, it was called,
and the country was still in disrepair at that point. They weren't coming back to a country that had been fixed and everything was great. Like, winning a war isn't an achievement like it should be. When you win a war, you've lost a lot of things before you've won a war.
Yeah, it's not romantic. It's not like,
not like they portrayed it.
Exactly, yeah. And the scouring
your country needs you.
Yeah, and the scouring of the Shire kind of goes into that a bit as well, because we see just how much work Sam has to put in afterwards, like, which I'll cover at the end of the episode, which I've saved for a little bit of niceness. Right, but so this is the post World War One world, right? That Tolkien would have come back to, and then he was writing Lord of the Rings, and it was published after World War Two, but he was writing it for a while. In 1944 or 45, actually, I think he sent a message to Christopher in the Air Force saying that he'd just started working on the story again, and so he was writing around this time. So all of these things would have coloured his experiences, and I think the Scouring of the Shire shows that. But let's move on into industry, industrialization and versus nature, right? So I asked in the Discord server earlier, like the Fellowship Readers one, I was like, we're going to record an episode about industry and environment. Is there any resources you can point us towards? And a few people came back with some quite helpful pointers, which pointed me to resources, so I'll just shout them out as we go. but the first one was a paper called Metal and Wheels by Doron Darnov, and I think it was Michael on the Discord server who sent us this. So, this like next bit of the episode's a bit fucking crowdfunded. But so in this paper, right, it's called Metal and Wheels. Doran starts talking about how the first thing we're told about hobbits is that they like good tilled earth. Like, and you'll know from the films that's one of the first lines, right? It's when Bilbo's writing his memoirs. And technology no more complicated than forge bellows, and they enjoy the land. But then later, when we're introduced to Sauron and Saruman, we then see that there are that evil people. Like, we get a sense that these are the ones who see the land as piecemeal. Their part, it's fuel for their desires. And Darnov writes, thus, in Tolkien's work, two distinct ways of viewing and understanding the earth emerge. Like hobbits, there are those who respect it for its intrinsic value, and, like Saruman and Sauron, there are those who view it as industrial fuel. In this way, Tolkien begins to align the industrial consumption of nature with a sense of evil, not only because the characters who do so are evil themselves, but also because the destruction of nature is used for explicitly evil purposes, namely, to convert the wholesome and inherent goodness which Tolkien attaches to natural ecology into the oppression and domination of other beings and even the earth itself. It is this relationship between good, evil, and nature that I will continue to explore and analyse throughout the paper, blah, blah, blah. And why Tolkien uses, in order to understand how and why Tolkien uses the industrial and anti-environmental gaze of Saruman and Sauron to foster a connection between evil and instrumental reason, in which the former is made manifest through the latter. So that's a textual analysis. So the first point is Tolkien doesn't do allegory, obviously. However, we do have very strong evidence that Tolkien has very strong environmental views. And if you could read reading number 2, please, my love.
Oh, my love now.
And this comes from his biography by Humphrey Carpenter, and it was Alex from who pointed us towards this section, so thank you, Alex.
Certainly, he was not indifferent to his surroundings, for man's destruction of the landscape moved him to profound anger. Here from his diary is his anguished description of a return to his childhood landscape of Sarehole Mill in 1933, when he was driving his family to visit relatives in Birmingham. I pass over the pangs to me of passing through Hall Green, become a huge tram-ridden meaningless suburb. This is a couple of wines down, where I actually lost my way, and eventually down what is left of beloved lanes of childhood and past the very gate of our cottage, now in the midst of a sea of new red brick. The old mill still stands, and Mrs. Hunt still sticks out into the road as it turns uphill. But the crossing beyond the now fenced-in pool, where the Bluebell Lane ran down into the mill lane, is now a dangerous crossing alive with motors and red lights. The White Ogre's house, which the children were excited to see, is become a petrol station, and most of Shaw Avenue and the elms between it and the crossing have gone. How I envy those whose precious early scenery has not been exposed to such violent and peculiar hideous change. He was similarly sensitive to the damage that was inflicted on the Oxfordshire countryside by the construction of wartime aerodromes and the improvement of roads. Later in life, when his strongest held opinions began to become obsessions, he would see a new road that had been driven across the corner of an eld and cry, "There goes the last of England's arable." By this time of his life he would maintain that there was not one unspoilt wood or hillside left in the land, and if there was, then he would refuse to visit it for fear of finding it contaminated by litter.
So pretty strong opinions on the environment there, right? Pretty strong opinions.
It's so true. I have had so many dog walks where I've thought exactly the same thing.
It's pretty messed up, yeah. So So now that we've seen all of that and we've discussed that, you can see that the Scouring of the Shire is a bad event for Tolkien, right?
Yeah.
It's wrecking the natural beauty of the land, and Saruman is directly an agent of this. And some people have even went as far as to say that the Scouring of the Shire may have been Tolkien's own version of the horn that Merry blows. Like he's trying to rouse people, like it's a call to arms to preserve the natural beauty of the land before it's destroyed. I can appreciate the sentiment, but I don't know if I believe it though, because it kind of like that starts to approach allegory territory. But I can understand the sentiment, because like we live in a place where I can be surrounded by nature quickly, and it's amazing, right?
A knitted landscape. Nature.
I was thinking about it today, right? And we've been several times, but there's a fucking gorge 10 minutes away from us. I never think about that.
Where's the gorge?
The gorge up at the arch.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a gorge,
the arch.
right?
Yeah.
So one day, do you remember I went for a hike through fields and woods from our front door, and you came and got me like 2 hours later.
And that little stream that has mussels in it.
There's a little stream that has mussels in it and watercress.
Watercress
Right
grows
near
there.
us, right?
Mussels.
And when I go for a run, I can choose whether I want woods, roads, or fields, and like it pisses me off thinking about that disappearing. Like, I don't like that.
But you can get the token of the litter.
The litter pisses me off.
So I feel like we need to do like a regular little litter pick, but then I'll be driving behind someone, or I'll be walking through the forest behind someone, and they litter, and they're a proper scrote.
I never.
And this isn't
that.
me being like upper class or middle class or lower class above underclasses. It is just me being a genuine person who just thinks, why would you do that? Like, we've got some beautiful land, and then we've got a bit where they've obviously tried to protect some bit of woodland in between housing estates, and it's so pretty. I've seen deer. We've got like a few owls must live there.
Yeah.
Got loads of squirrels, bunnies, everything.
And then you see these cunts just throwing litter
and throwing bloody couches.
I just cannot. The
amount of fires I've put out.
I cannot fathom that. But yeah, so this is somewhere where me and Tolkien very closely align. But he also doesn't like this. He didn't really care for new buildings springing up and stuff like that. Like, again, it was destroying the landscape at the expense of nature. And in letter 58 to his son Christopher, in April of 1944, he took a stroll around Oxford, and he wasn't best pleased with what he saw. And again, Fellowship of the Readers member Deep Roots pointed me to this one. And the quote is, "I then strolled around my hometown for a bit, except for one patch of ghastly wreckage which was opposite my old school site. It does not look much damage, not by the enemy. The chief damage has been the growth of great, flat, featureless modern buildings. The worst of all is the ghastly multiple-store erection on the old site. I couldn't stand much of that or the ghosts that rove from the pavements. So I caught a tram from the same old corner at which I used to catch it to go out to the playing fields, down the shabby, much bomb-pocked Bristol Road to Edgbaston Park Road at 12:15, half an hour too soon. I won't weary you with the impressions of the ghastly, utterly third-rate new school buildings, but if you can imagine a better building than most Oxford colleges being replaced by what looks like a girls' council school, you've got it, and my feelings."
Right, that sounds really pompous. I understand some of it, and I do get some of it, but some of it also sounds quite pompous.
Yeah.
You know,
in that same letter, he talks about how he runs into someone and has to convince them that his accent's not put on, and it doesn't mean he's posh. It's just something he's taught from nursery.
No. I think that he is a bit of a you, really.
Oh, aye.
I'm not starting an argument. What I'm meaning is that you come from somewhere that's pretty industrial.
Right.
And you've spent quite a few years now. You've built up your career. You're in more of a kind of rural-ish area. And you like things ever so. And I'm sorry, but you're living through an era, so you're past the industrial period, but you're also living through an era where there's a lot of industry still building, and going to university and stuff starts to become more accessible to more people.
Right.
So they're going to be building more school buildings, unfortunately, Tolkien. They're going to be building more facilities, okay? We can't just be sticking yous all in, 16th century buildings. There's only so many, because there wasn't many people who could attend university and could attend prestigious things in the 16th century when these buildings were built. So we're going to need more buildings.
Well, yeah,
It's just
I see that, but it's
the
also
aesthetic. I get it.
So I've seen an argument.
I do get the aesthetic.
So I've seen an argument recently crop up that minimalism is shit, which I never thought I'd be on the side of, yeah, minimalism is shit. But like when you look at things that are featureless compared to, like, say, like Gothic architecture.
Yeah, it's feel good. It's good for the soul.
Yeah,
but
or like Baroque.
But minimalism, I think a lot of people's argument for minimalism is that it breeds creativity, because you're not getting distracted by things that don't really matter, like what building you're in.
I don't know if I agree with that one.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, it's just, yeah, I like.
Tolkien had a lifestyle, okay?
Yeah.
Everyone wishes that they had the Tolkien lifestyle in terms of post-war. No one wants to live through the war. But the Tolkien lifestyle, living in this chocolate box British place where all the buildings are beautiful and they're historic and everything, like, Shakespeare touched that wall while he wrote this, and everyone wishes for that. But life moves on, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, that's history. So, I see.
He's reminiscing for the good days.
He is.
Bless him.
He is. He's trying to live in the good old days, and aren't we all? Aren't we all? My good old days are now, so I'm loving them.
Yeah, me too.
My good old days are now, so I'm enjoying that. But I'm reminiscing about things that happened yesterday, and things that are happening tomorrow. But I understand what he means, because, like, if you seeing buildings crop up and you think you don't add anything to the landscape, like, no one's going to look at the wreckage of this in 200 years, 2,000 years or whatever and be like, this was magnificent.
I mean, if you look at a tower block.
Shit. Fucking shit.
Even an architect would probably look at a tower block and think, ugh. Any architects, please get back to us. Do you look at a tower block of flats and think, ugh?
Yeah, I tell you what, so what I always think of is when I lived in Poland, my flat, like my whole area of the city where I lived in Warsaw, was all very, very similar tower blocks, and that's like Soviet style architecture. And it's quite dreary and that.
Regime-ish.
Yeah, but then there was these flashes of creativity, because there was some of the most beautiful graffiti I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not saying graffiti as in a disparage, but like the genuine art form graffiti, where there was like touching murals to the Warsaw Uprising and stuff like that. So people will, I kind of see your point. People will be creative regardless. But that being said,
it breeds creativity, because if you're in a droll place.
But that being said, when I was in Warsaw in winter alone, and all I had to look at was the tower blocks around me, it was pretty fucking depressing. That being said, I do miss living there.
There's not enough creative people.
I just
to paint those tower blocks.
Well, I just couldn't fucking speak the language. Right, let's move on, because I still want to talk about Saruman a bit more, and some other stuff. So, Sauron was held in similar regard with Mordor and Isengard, but we're talking about Sauron today, right? So, just to put it out there, Isengard and Mordor were pretty similar, in that they're both described as a kind of hell, an industrial hell. And
that sounds exciting and hot and sweaty down abs.
It's pretty horrible. But I'm going to read out a passage from the book. Right, I'm going to read out a passage from the book, and I want you. I challenge you to not think of this as a type of hell. Many houses there were, chambers, halls, and passages, cut and tunnelled back into the walls upon their inner side, so that all the open circle was overlooked by countless windows and dark doors. Thousands could dwell there, workers, servants, slaves, and warriors with great store of arms. Wolves were fed and stabled in deep dens beneath. The plain, too, was bored and delved. Shafts were driven deep into the ground, their upper ends were covered by low mounds and domes of stone, so that in the moonlight the ring of Isengard looked like a graveyard of unquiet dead. For the ground trembled, the shafts ran down by many slopes and the spiral stairs to caverns far under. There Saruman had treasuries, storehouses, armories, smithies, and great furnaces. Iron wheels revolved there endlessly and hammers thudded. At night plumes of vapour steamed from the vents, lit from beneath with red light, or blue, or venomous green.
That sounds delightful.
Fuck you. It sounds horrible.
Right, apart from, like, I would hope I got some sort of fresh air. But that sounds really cosy.
Nah, it sounds like hell. It sounds like hell.
I feel like I'm going to be warm there.
Yeah, you would be, but it'd be humid, it'd be stifling, and you'd never get a fresh breeze. You'd never, like...
But you get to pet a big wolf.
But, like, I think it's very deliberate, right? And to me, it was reading that again for this that made me think more of Angband and Autumno than anything else, right? It made me think that Sauron was just trying to skip Sauron and go straight to emulating Morgoth. Like, that's the vibe I got from it, right? Like, the languages and the deep places and spirals and vapour.
Where it's all hidden.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Autumno was...
no fresh freedom.
Yeah.
You're all enclosed. You're all together. There's no escape. You're all being watched because of all the windows and the doors that people are stood at.
Yeah. So I think, like, from now on, I'm going to view Saruman as a more evil figure than I already have. And fucking...
He's just a big copycat.
Aule has got the worst servants. Sauron and Saruman, both servants of Aule, both absolute evil bastards. And arguably, if you count Feanor, who you still haven't really covered, but if you count Feanor amongst that, that's 3 evil people that come from Aule. But I don't want to end on a bummer. So for the last part of the episode, we're going to go with some good news that's come from all this. How's that sound?
Okay then.
Yeah, alright, big titty goth girl.
I love a bit of misery.
So the good news is that after all the scouring of the Shire nonsense is put to bed, Sam becomes mayor and he leads the efforts to fix the place. And so he uses the gift from Galadriel, which is a box of soil that contains a single silver malorn nut, and it grows the only malorn tree in Middle-earth outside of Lorien. And when it blooms the next summer, it's said that the whole Shire becomes golden from the flowers, which is just beautiful. And you know what we haven't done this episode? There's no language, so we're going to do some language.
No, for goodness sake.
Malorn comes from the Sindarin words malt and orn, which literally means gold tree. And the word malt comes from the primitive Quenya word smal, which means yellow. And the word orn comes from the primitive Quenya word oro, which means rise or mount, and derives into orne for tree, then orn in Sindarin. And 2 other times that this crops up that you'll know the names of is Fangorn, which is tree beard, and Celeborn, which means silver and tall. And the plural of the word malorn is Melirin, and the Quenyan name is Malinorni. And that's it for this week. That's Saruman, the Scouring of the Shire, environmentalism, and post-World War One. How does that sound? How do you feel?
Yeah, it was good. If anyone wants to read more about World War One, which obviously you came here for World War One, not Tolkien.
Obviously.
the Imperial War Museum has a Voices of the First World War legacy, and Voices of the First World War homecoming page, where you can find some of the quotes that we have read.
Oh,
Enjoy.
fantastic. Yeah, okay. So a big thank you for everyone listening, and we'll catch you next week. So that's a bye from me.
And goodbye from Rebecca.
Bye.